Wayne, how would you sum up this journey that you've been on and all the successes that you've had and people that you've impacted through the years?
You know, you live in the moment, I think is the best way to describe it. I remember when I was 16 or 17 and we were running at the county fairs in Wisconsin, as far from par mutual as you could probably get. And I always thought, boy, if I could just be lucky enough to run a horse where they actually bet on it, it was official. And that was my goal. I had no idea what was about to happen, but I think if you fall in love with it, like you and I are, you keep pushing ahead, and then that coaching background, I think, makes you competitive to where you're just looking for the next one all the time. But it has been a journey.
What was it like growing up in Antigua, Wisconsin, the northern part of Wisconsin? It seems like it's on the moon compared to where the places that you've gone.
Pretty close to the moon. It's a farming community. I think it's gotten up to 8,000 now, but I think it was 6 when I was in high school there. A lot of potato farmers. The potatoes were big there, and of course dairy farms. And it was typical. I went to a one-room school, and when I was from the 4th grade to a freshman in high school, I was never in a class of more than 2. Charlene Schrader and I were the only 2. I graduated with a class of 2 from the 8th grade, and I was second in my class. Charlene was she was more focused than I was.
And then you go off to UW-Madison, University of Wisconsin-Madison. What was that experience like?
Well, that changed me a lot, because I ended up in my freshman or sophomore year working for a high-end clothing store on the Capitol Square. And it impressed me to see how those people from, those high-end professionals, either in the business community or, in politics, they walk different, they talk different, they were different. And I thought, these guys got their act together. And I decided that I was going to work towards being more professional and tried to carry it to the racehorse industry a little bit.
What did you do when you graduated from University of Wisconsin?
I got a little coaching job at a really small community called Blair. And I was there just 2 years. And I had a chance to go back as the freshman coach at Wisconsin. And so I jumped at that, and I got my master's degree at the same time. It was really a good deal. And that was when the freshmen weren't eligible to play like they are now. It was a whole different structure in the NCAA. But I went back, and then when I graduated and went out next time, I ended up with a very, very good job in La Crosse, Wisconsin, high-end high school. And the horses kept pulling pretty hard, so I lasted about 7 more years with that, knowing that probably the horses were going to get the best of me. My mother said, you can't be fooling around with these horses. You have to do something worthwhile with your life. You got to make a contribution. You have to do something that you can't just fool around with these horses.
So how did you make the jump? Like, what was the push to move back to the horses and get involved in the quarter horses?
Well, I never stopped. That was the difference. I was running every summer, Park Jefferson, South Dakota, all through there, Omaha, Nebraska, and everything. I was running in the summers. And what happened is 1970, they went to year-round racing in California for quarter horses. And when that happened, I decided that the horses were going to be my life, and I resigned and started pushing the quarter horses. The reason I had the quarter horses when I was coaching is I could get them ready to run. They didn't have to have as much ground on fitness, so forth, so it was a little easier to do it. But the quarter horses were a very good background for me.
Very good. What made it so good?
Well, I think, and Bob Baffert and I have talked about this a lot. I think that we both paid more attention to conformation and what a racehorse should look like in his movement and everything. The quarter horses, the registrations was very new. I think 49 was the first year. And you'd see registration papers, and I questioned if that was the sire of the dam. There wasn't they didn't take a hair follicle or anything to check it. So you ended up buying horses that looked like athletic horses that could win. Then in '74, I did both. And I was running at Hollywood Park in the daytime, Los Alamitos at night.
And were you motivated to get into the thoroughbreds? What was it? Why did you, because if I read this correctly, in the span of 10 years, you had 24 champions in quarter horse racing?
23 or 4, yeah.
So what was the motivation, the reason to move towards the thoroughbreds?
Well, a number of things happened. First of all, we were very successful. We were winning the right races, had the right horses, the right champions. My son Jeff would say to me, "Dad, we got to go across town. We can beat him over there just as easy as we're beating him here." And he pushed for that, and I was reluctant because I didn't know if my clientele would come with me. And actually, only one of them did when I did make the break and go full thoroughbreds. But we started building clientele over there very quickly. And we had the first meet at Santa Anita, we only had 4 horses. We got along pretty good. I think that your success in this game is the only thing that keeps you going. You know what I mean? People look at successful trainers, and if you're not very successful, if I'd have switched and not been very successful right off the bat, I think that it probably wouldn't have been such a great journey as you pointed out. I had Terlingua in the barn, bought her just because I trained her mother at Ruidoso, and ended up running her and winning the Philly stake. 3 weeks later, I run her against the Colts and beat the Colts. The next thing, she's on the magazine covers. And Effervescing comes along. We bought him. He was supposed to be finished and going to the stud. I got him going good and won 2 grade 1s in 4 days with him. 1 on the grass, 1 on the dirt. Well, that kind of stuff really got people's attention.
Would you say that going fast forward to 1980 and the Preakness win with Kodaks, did that really push you even further?
Well, I never thought I would have a horse in the classics, but I'm riding my pony down through the barn area of Santa Anita, and an elderly gray-haired guy says, "Stop." He said, "I'm going to send you some horses. I'll see you in about an hour." And I just switched over from the quarter horses. And I rode a little bit further, and I ran into Jerry Fanning, another trainer, and I said, "Who's that gray-haired guy?" He just stopped me and said he's going to send me some horses. Now, you got to remember, I had a stable of 4 at that point. And he said, "That's John Nayrud." He said, "If he'll send them, if he said he's going to send them." So here he comes about an hour later, and he said, "I'm going to send you some 2-year-olds." In that group was Kodaks. So now we're going along, and Kodaks looks like he's going to be a racehorse and going to help us get where we want to go. So we end up going to the Preakness, and John Nayrud hadn't nominated him for the Kentucky Derby because John was involved with that miss of the wire or with Shoemaker or whatever had happened that time. He was sour on the Derby. So he let me go to the Preakness with him, and of course we won the Preakness with a lot of controversy too, with the supposedly bushing and bumping of Genuine Risk, the Derby winner.
What is it about the Preakness that you've had so much success? Is there a reason? I mean, obviously you have to have a good horse to win the Preakness, but what is it specifically about the Preakness that has been so good to you?
First of all, it's our favorite race, you know, not because we've won it 7 times, but just because they treat you so great, and it's kind of a lot of camaraderie there. All the stake horses in one barn and everything. And Bamford and I talk about that a lot. We like it. But the thing about the Preakness, I think in the early years, I was so foolish and had such grandiose ideas that I was going to win all 3. when I had a good horse. And it sounds crazy, but I think I was using the Kentucky Derby as a prep to get to the other two. I had the mindset if I could get squeezed by and get lucky in the Derby, then turn the screws down a little tighter in the Preakness and go to the Belmont. After a few sessions of that, I figured out I better try to win the Derby and not worry about the Preakness till it comes up.
Is there one that immediately comes to mind in all the wins that you had in the Preakness Stakes?
Yes. I would have to point out that Tabasco Cat was the horse that ran over my son and caused the head injury that lasted all for years to come. But you can't blame the horse, and I never did. I decided to make him the best horse I could possibly make. And so here he comes through. He doesn't win the Kentucky Derby, but he gets the Preakness and the Belmont. So that would be the one.
How did you, as a father, navigate that accident with Jeff? How as a father were you able to cope with that and carry on with training horses and the rest of it?
It affected the barn, and we were so naive about the severity of the accident. 5 years of rehab and things of that nature, and it was the 40-some days he was in a coma. You start to realize that this is a serious, tough thing. And Randy Bradshaw was working for me, and he took over the barn, and I spent most of my nights in the hospital waiting for him to come out of the coma.
And you said that you never wanted to hold it against Tabasco Cat, the horse that did this. Did you have that mindset immediately?
No. What happened was all the grooms were very close to Jeff also, and they were bitter towards the horse. And it was the animosity towards that horse in the barn was apparent. And I got to thinking about it, and I thought, you know what, we're going to turn the corner with Jeff, and we need to make this horse the best possible horse we could. And we were slipping in the standings at Santa Anita. We weren't, because the whole atmosphere in the barn had changed with that accident. And so I called them all together, and I said, we're going to change this completely. We're going to see if we can take this horse all the way to the Triple Crown. And that was right in December.
We could sit here for days and talk about all the years, 2,700 trophies you told me are now at the Derby Museum. In all of this, what are you most proud of?
Probably those guys that came through, the Todd Pletchers, Karen McLaughlin, Mike Maker, all of those guys, Dallas Stewart. I think that I think that being able to maybe help them through, get to where they want to go, sharing, helping them raise themselves. They weren't always quite as polished as they are now. And I think that really will be our legacy.
I just envisioned Todd Pletcher being born with a suit on.
Yeah, now. He when he came to work for me, I'd known his father, J.J. Pletcher, and he'd worked about a month for Charlie Whittingham. And then he came over to us, and I said, what'd you learn over there with Charlie? He said, I don't know. He said, he just told me to shut up and watch, you'll learn. And so we took a different step. The coaching background came out in me strong. I started teaching. I'd say, we're going to work this horse, half a mile today, and I don't want to do anything the rest of the week with him. And I don't want him to say, okay, boss. I want him to say, why? Why would we do that? And Todd and Dallas and them, they were very good to question, hey, boss, what the hell are we doing this for, And I think that I was able to pass on what I knew and had learned through trial and error and put them maybe a little ahead, although I think that all of those guys would have been going to be really good horsemen. See, if you have passion about it, you eliminate the excuses. That's true of anything. It's you, everybody. When you have passion, you'll drive all night, you'll go without lunch, you'll do things that make no sense if you have a passion in your profession. And you have to have that. That's what keeps driving you. I'm going to be 90 this summer, and I could probably get by without getting up at 3:30 a.m. every day and being out there. But I want to get out there, and I beat everybody at the barn today.
Could you just not imagine not being on that horse every morning? What is it that pushes you to do it every day?
That's the most comfortable I am. I don't know what it is. I don't think I'll train horses if I can't ride that pony every day. I don't know where this is all going to end. We don't talk about retirement too much, do we? I don't think so. I'd like to get another one this summer, one or two of those better ones. And I don't want to hang around with older people, because you go to dinner and within the conversation, you get a group of my age, I guarantee you it won't be 2 minutes. You won't even get the menu yet, and somebody will start talking about his health. They'll start telling you how they feel and what's wrong with them and what they overcome and everything else. The whole conversation goes there. Now, if you go with a bunch of 30-year-olds, they never mention their health. They could care less. They're going to talk about their girlfriends or whatever. So I like to be around those young people. But I love to see them grow. Like Tyler Bacon impressed me. I waited a week. I watched him ride, and I one day just said, you know, that kid's okay. I'm going to see if I can maybe help him a little bit. So I called him in, and I got a legal pad out, and I said, I'm going to show you something about this racetrack. Half of the race is turns. So you don't make any moves on the turn anymore. You're wearing the horse out. You commit to the turns, and I drew it out for him and everything, and he was very receptive. And I'm teaching him every day yet. And I think he's going to go to Prairie Meadows, and I'll lose track of him, but I feel real good about what I've done so far.
What's one question that you've been asked that you hate being asked? Is there something through the years?
The one that's asked the most is, what's the best horse you ever trained? Everybody wants to know what's the best one. My answer to that is, what year are you talking about? Because the one that was the best that year is the one I like the most. I mean, I could have never predicted that the Magner group, Michael Tabor, were going to drop this little pony that ended up being Thunder Gulch in the barn, you know, and stuff like that. He won us all over.
But you don't like being asked who's the best horse you've ever trained?
Well, I answer it. I think the best horse I ever trained was Dash for Cash, a quarter horse. I never thought he would lose, and he didn't. Now, that's saying a lot. He'd lost a couple races as a 2-year-old when my good friend Bubba Cassio had him. But when I got him, I won every time with him. And I got so cocky sure that it was just fun. I'd say, try to get 9 in here, boys, because you're in deep doo-doo right here. You know, he just win.
He was obviously fast. What was it about him that...
He just was solid. He just, every time you took him over there, he showed up. I've had a lot of really good horses, and then some of them been a struggle. Charismatic, I thought, was a complete waste when he was 2. I mean, I couldn't get him to break 50 in a half mile, and I just thought, I'll never get this one. And then I switched up and tried something else and kept switching up. And not only does he win the Derby, he gets to be Horse of the Year. And I ran him for claim, because I ran him for $62,500 claim. And Bob Lewis, who owned him, said, Wayne, they write him for $25,000. Put him in there and get rid of him. these horses are really, really get inside you.
Is that an example, the charismatic journey, is that just an example of sometimes patience is needed, or is patience always needed?
I think patience to a degree is always needed, but some of these, I think some of the younger set that are training younger people now, they get too much information probably. I don't buy the form, I don't read the form. I don't have a stopwatch. I'll listen to you guys once in a while. But I just like to, they'll say, how do you think in this race? I said, I don't know, my horse is 8-1, I don't know what else is in here, you know.
Is that just trusting your instinct? Is that
Yeah.
what you need to do, what people need to learn, I guess?
I just train my horses, and I don't worry about all the rest of them. You know, the Derby is the worst one for that. When these young trainers come to the Kentucky Derby, and they get in that bubble, like that glass house we all are in, and the press comes over, you guys come over and you say, wow, Bafford's horse just worked 12 flat, 112 flat for 6 furlongs. Well, some of those young guys will walk away and say, you know, I know what they're thinking. They'll say, guys, I didn't work my horse that hard. Maybe I should get him back over there tomorrow. And it might not be what that horses need, but they, you know, here's a Bafford winning the Triple Crown. I better pick my head up here and do a little something more. And that might not be what the horse needs. You got to stay disciplined in your own thoughts, and it's a trial and error thing anyhow.
Did you always have that discipline, or did you go through what you just described the first
I
time you
don't
went to the
think I
Derby?
went through it much. They said I was too cocky to listen, but I made my mistakes and lived with them. No, I never got caught up in that at all. Not a bit.
Did you feel like you were cocky when you were younger?
I was confident to a fault. When I come over to Hollywood Park in Santa Anita from the quarter horses, we won the stake, I think, the third or fourth start that we had. And the clerk of scales said to me, I can remember it distinctly, he said, wow, cowboy, he said, didn't take you long to get a good one here. And I said, cocky me, I just said, well, you didn't think I came over here to practice, did you? But the horses will humble you. They'll bring you down, boy. You can get a little cocky, but they'll bring you to your knees. They have a marvelous way of doing that.
Is there one is there a moment, a race, a horse that you wish you could have back, have a second chance at?
Yeah. Capote. I bought Capote as a yearling, and he turned out to be really good 2-year-old, won the Hollywood Fraternity, and over the winter, he got an intestinal virus that really knocked him. He lost weight, his hair coat was bad and everything, and yet around February or March, maybe into March, he started to come around a little bit, and I pointed him for the Kentucky Derby. And in hindsight, what I know now, I would have never done that. He ran terrible. And he actually was never that good again, you know, even though he went to the stud and it was very popular. But I just thought I could overcome what nature had put in front of me there. And I would, looking back, I had no shot. I just should have never put him in the Derby.
You still having fun?
Yeah, every day. I like it. I like it. I like the camaraderie. I don't know, it seems like the elderly men and women, if they're not doing what we're doing, they go to the country club, talk about their golf scores all day and so forth, or there's a group that go that McDonald's every morning here. They're all retired men and everything. And I think they reach out that way. Where we in this business, boy, there are hundreds of them crossing our path all the time. I like that. I like to help the little ones. I like to influence them. That's why I take that small child to the winner's circle all the time. It's the most satisfying thing we do now. Again, I've been so blessed with winners that I tell Lori, just like yesterday, she said, I don't see anybody. I said, I think there's a little girl over there. And sure enough, we brought her down. But those 6 and 7-year-olds, you can't believe how it affects them to go down to the winner's circle. They're just awestruck. And it's the most satisfying thing we do. And then they get the kid to go over and ring the bell and do the whole thing. We send them to the photographer's office. Right, I say in 15 minutes you can get this full picture, and it's on me. I pay for it, and if you're still around an hour later, I'll sign it. You know, but you would not believe the feedback that I get with letters from young people that are 25 or 30 years old now saying, I know you don't remember me, but when I was 9, you took me to the winner's circle from the crowd, and I still have the picture on my office wall.
It really is remarkable what this sport and this game does in bringing people together.
Unbelievable. It's hard to leave, I know that. It would be, but I think that you have an opportunity to maybe influence more people than you realize. And as I say, I've always preached that it comes from greatness, and achievement is from influence. You've been influenced, and I've been influenced by somebody along the line. It's okay to have a role model, just so it isn't some guy that's sleeping until 10 o'clock.